Sister MC for the introduction. And so we have been discussing political science for the last 3 weeks. I think in the last 3 weeks we covered quite a lot of aspects. We introduction to political science and also Islamic perspective of political science. And in the last week we discussed about uh, Islamic political ethics or political ethics in Quran and Sunnah. Today we are going to reflect, today and next week actually, we are going to reflect more on classical political theory. In that, today we are going to discuss classical Islamic political theory, and the next week we will discuss Western classical political theory. So, to understand classical Islamic political theory, I just choose two important scholars who represent two different variants within Islamic classical political theory. One is Al-Mawardi and Al-Farabi. So we are going to reflect both of these scholars and thinkers in the Islamic past to understand how Islamic history manifested different kind of political understanding and political philosophies. And right, so this is my content. So initially I will I will discuss a bit about epistemology, ethics, and political philosophy, and the link between actually the political philosophy and ethics and epistemology. That is what I am going to focus on initially. Then I will discuss epistemology and ethical debates in classical Islam. I will try to give a framework to understand this ethical and epistemological debate in classical Islam. Then I will discuss Al-Mawardi and the basics of Sunni political theory. As you know, that Imam Al-Mawardi is one of the leading thinkers who actually laid the foundations or elaborated the foundations of Sunni political theory as we identify today. And so he is one of the leading authorities in Sunni political theology. So we are going to reflect on his major ideas. The second, Al-Farabi, and here I will discuss the essentials of rationalist political theory in Islam. So Islamic tradition actually produced two distinct types of political theories. One is rationalist, one has rationalist foundation, another one has revelation based political philosophy. So we are going to reflect both in this presentation, and finally I will give a few concluding remarks. So in order to understand Farabi and Mawardi and all the debates that happen in classical Islam, initially we need to understand the landscape or the link between political philosophy and ethics and epistemology. As it is captured in this diagram, I have put here political philosophy as applied ethics, meaning to say political philosophy is always deals with, or at least political philosophy talks about political institutions and how the authority should be, or at least what are the legitimate sources of authority and what are the major tasks of authority, political authority, and how should political institutions act and interact with the citizens. These are the major questions that political philosophy try to address. In this sense, we can easily say no any political institution or political concept can be considered value neutral, meaning to say whether you know, across the world we see many kind of political concept, many different kind of political institutions. All those political institutions and concepts are originally emerged from a certain value background, meaning to say based on certain ethical premises. All political institutions reflect certain world view. So there is an embedded link or strong connection between political philosophy and worldview and ethics. So to elaborate more on this subject, mainly the political philosophy, let's take an example. The political philosophy mainly discuss about political institutions and the power that those institutions have and how that sure power needs to be applied. These are the major concerns of political philosophy. So in order to determine that, mainly we need to all political philosophies or all kind of political concepts, how do they respond to those questions? They actually coming based on particular ethical principles, and where those ethical principles are emerging from a particular worldview. So worldview means it's worldview. How do we derive those worldviews? From a particular epistemological source. So let's assume that Islamic political philosophy, we actually talk about caliphate and all those Islamic states or Islamic political models. Those political models are actually applied through those political models. What we're trying to do is to apply Islamic ethics. So Islamic ethics is, we consider Islamic law is a primary source of ethics, primary manifestation of ethics. From where those ethics are coming from, we derive Islamic ethics from a particular source of law, particular epistemological source, which we call Quran, Sunnah, and reason. So you see here the link between epistemology, ethics, and political philosophy. We initially develop our worldview, then we develop our system of ethics, and then we develop political institutions to apply those ethics and to model those ethics, model the people, and shape the people's or shape the citizens of a country based on those ethics. This is how not only Islamic political philosophy works, all kind of political philosophy works in this direction. For example, if there is a liberal political philosophy, meaning to say liberal political philosophy is rooted in liberal ethics, and liberal ethics is rooted in a particular conception of worldview, which they derive from a particular epistemological source, which is abstract reason. So is similar kind, you need the political, for Buddhist political philosophy. If, for example, from where that political philosophy emerges in the first place, that emerges from the Buddhist ethics, because Buddhist politics is to just to apply Buddhist ethics in the society. Where Buddhist ethics comes from particular source of epistemology, which is very particular to the Buddhist philosophy. So this is how the political philosophy works. Political philosophy has an intimate link with ethics and epistemology. To put it more simply, political philosophy or political science is simply an applied version of ethics, applied version of worldview. So this is a theoretical framework that I am going to discuss and reflect on. So in order to understand Islamic political philosophy, we need to know, in order to understand different strands of political philosophy, Islamic political philosophy, we need to understand Islamic ethical framework and also Islamic epistemological framework. So this is very much interconnected. So now I am trying to give you an overview about the Islamic epistemological and ethical debates. In Islamic history, you could see that we have four schools of thought when it comes to the epistemology and ethics. For example, the dominant one is Ash'arism. Ash'ari or Maturidi, both we can use. Mainly I take it Ash'ari for granted, because Ash'ari is one of the dominant schools of epistemology and ethics in Islamic history. So major Islamic scholars represented actually the Ash'arism, Ash'ari paradigm. Imam al-Mawardi that we are going to discuss today, Imam al-Ghazali and Imam al-Juwayni these greats of Islamic history actually represent the paradigm of Ash'ari school of thought. What is the epistemological and ethical domain that Ash'arism represented? Which I named here revelation centric ethics. Meaning to say, revelation is the main source of ethics. Main source of ethics mean from where you derive your ethics, it is from revelation. So revelation is the foundational text to understand ethics. So in that sense, do they reject or did they reject reason? No. They incorporate reason, but the understanding of reason is what we call dependent reason, meaning to say it is not an independent reason, rather we can use reason but in light of revelation. So revelation needs to be revelation has the power to supersede reason in Ash'ari theoretical framework. So this we call revelation centric ethics, which doesn't mean they reject reason, rather they accept reason within the fold of revelation. The second important school of thought in Islamic ethical and epistemological debate is Mu'tazila. We Islamic scholars identify Mu'tazila as a reason-centric ethics, meaning to say Mu'tazila, in Mu'tazilian perspective, reason is the key and important epistemological principle. And reason in Mu'tazilian understanding, if we want to derive ethical principles, that we need to give priority to rational ideas in terms of drawing those ethics. So it's not revelation, rather reason should be given the priority in developing Islamic ethics. This is right opposite to the idea or stance that Ash'arism took. So here I put in the brackets independent reason. Reason has an independent authority to judge and to derive and to develop ethics. Do they reject revelation? No. They accept revelation, but within the fold of reason. They say that revelation actually supports reason, and reason and revelation both they argue that though both complement each other, we should always give reason priority. So reason has an independent authority, but revelation doesn't have an independent authority in Mu'tazilian paradigm. Rather, revelation needs to operate always under the supervision of reason. This is the Mu'tazilian paradigm, and so even if we want to develop ethics and principles and foundations for our life and to regulate our society, we need to give priority to reason. This is Mu'tazilian argument. So we have another kind of scholars tradition which we call philosophers. They also actually promote reason, meaning to say they also promote reason-centric ethics. But unlike Mu'tazila, they actually give reason a super priority, we can say, and they always try to argue that reason is the supreme source of law and supreme source of ethics, and revelation is just for the general public, meaning to say it's not that much important, but the most important source is reason, meaning it's a logical reason. This is according to philosophers. Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Al-Kindi represented this kind of tradition. We have a fourth category of scholars which are Sufis. So for example, Ibn Arabi, here they argue spiritually centered ethics, meaning to say the right, where do you get from where you get the knowledge or learn the knowledge of goodness from bad, right from wrong, and all the ethical principles. For Sufis like Ibn Arabi, from your spiritual empowerment. Once you empower your spirituality, once you experience higher level of spirituality, which allow certain kind of people to discover hidden knowledge which they get from the God, and among those knowledge is the highest ethical principles. So for some Sufis, spirituality also a source of knowledge and also a source of ethics. So we have these four different kind of epistemological and ethical schools in classical Islam. Among those, I actually selected Ash'ari and philosophers to compare each other in terms of their approach to political philosophy. And Al-Mawardi and the basics of classical political theory. Now you know that Mawardi is an Ash'ari theologian, so he represented a revelation-centric ethical. He actually embraced revelation-centric ethical principle. So in his political philosophy, he actually applied this understanding, and he tried to develop a revelation-based political theory, at least, or try to justify his political model based on revelation. So it became a mainstream Sunni political theology or theory in the classical Islam. So you see, this is the Mawardi's famous work, The Ordinances of the Government, Ahkamus Sultaniya. Ahkamus Sultaniya wal Wilayat ad-Diniya al-Mawardi. And he born in Basra, and he is a famous Shafi jurist and also one of the elite political advisors to the Abbasids. And he is even the chief ambassador in his time, and also chief justice and ambassador in his time, and also statesman, meaning to say he was an insider to the political elites. And in his time there was a conflict between the caliph and also between the sultan. Sultan actually held the real power in Abbasid Caliphate. The caliph was just for namesake. He didn't have the authority. He was totally marginalized. So this created a power struggle between this office of caliph and the sultan. Sultan had the real power over the territories, and caliph has the power of religion because his office represented the continuity of the earliest caliphate. So both have their own source of legitimacies. This created a conflict. For the first time through this book, Imam al-Mawardi, The Ordinances of the Government, he tried to reconcile this power struggle. For that matter, this book is a very, very vital to the history of Islamic political thought. And this is the background of his political context, and this is the background where he wrote this. Against that, he wrote this book. And in this book, he explicitly provides a detailed overview about the political philosophy or political theory which came to dominate the majority of the Islamic world, major parts of the Islamic world after him. And what are the major ideas that he developed in his book? He actually clearly for the first time outlined that realization of a caliphate is a revelation-based obligation upon the Muslim community. So caliphate as an institution came into being because of the demand of revelation. Revelation demanded in a construction of an office of caliph. So he argued through this, through highlighting this point, though the sultans are powerful, sultans cannot extend their power to deconstruct the office of caliph. Sultans, yes, they can have the power, but they don't have the right to challenge the office of the caliph. Why? The caliphate is a revelation. The caliphate was initially built upon a demand which actually came from revelation. So it's a revelation linked institution. This is his strong argument that which actually protected the office of the caliph across the Islamic history or across centuries. Though the caliphate saw many political upheavals, it was protected because of his emphasis and stress on the caliphate and the institution of caliphate in his book. And what are the revelation based obligation, where the revelation actually says or actually says about the caliphate. He actually brought many Quranic verses about the leadership, importance of leadership, importance of the importance of the good governance from the Quran, and justified the importance of the office of the caliphate. And also he, for the first time, he used ijma as a source of law and the consensus of Sahaba as the sources of that obligation, because earlier Sahabas was unanimously agreed that the caliphate, the office of caliphate, is the construction of the office of the caliphate is a one fundamental right of the, or fundamental obligation of the Muslim community. So Quran and Ijma, according to Mawardi, are the two important sources of that obligation. So then, what is if there is a caliph, and what is the role of the caliph actually? Mawardi says the protection of the Islamic law is the fundamental task of the Islamic ruler. He is the one first clearly outlined this duty in his book. And also he argued that in order to protect the Islamic law and in order to safeguard and apply Islamic law, he said ruler needs to be an Islamic jurist, because if the ruler is not an Islamic jurist, and he will not be sensitive towards Islamic law. So he argued that ruler also needs to be a perfect Islamic jurist. But this doesn't mean that only particular class of jurists can become rulers, like what we see in Shia tradition. Particular imams were designated as the leaders of their community. This is not the case in Sunni political theory. Mawardi says anyone can be a political leader, need not to be a person with supreme knowledge of ethics or ethics opposed to the Shias and Khawarijis, because Khawarijis and Shias are argued that there are particular class of jurists, they are only entitled to rule the community. But though Islamic jurist is the perfect leader that Islamic community needs to appoint, we may not sometimes find such a perfect jurist, and most of the political leaders are ignorant of Islamic laws. In a such condition, Mawardi says anyone can become the political leader, but there should be at least the Islamic jurist needs to be appointed to advise that leader who has no knowledge over the Islamic law. So there is a flexibility within Sunni political theory, but you don't see this flexibility within Shia or Hawariji political tradition, because the political leader needs to be perfect and need to be a high authority in Islamic jurisprudence. But Mawardi tells, yes, that is the condition, but if you don't find such a person, anyone can become a political leader, but a jurist needs to be appointed as a advisor. And again he says political obligation should be based on the contract between the ruler and the ruled. So there is no authoritarianism in Sunni political theory, and there is no support for dictatorship in Sunni political theory. Sunni political theory, as it is elaborated by Mawardi, clearly says political leadership is coming to being, or political leadership in the first place coming to being based on a contract between the ruler and the ruled. Ruler needs to represent the hope and will and aspirations of the ruled, meaning to say he doesn't get his power from divine sources, rather he gets his power from the people. So people appointed him or a political leader based on a certain conditions, that he need to protect Islam and applying Islam and should stand for the interest of the Muslims. So these are the conditions. So if political leader violates such conditions, then he will lose the legitimacy. So the people ruled, or the citizens have the right to replace him. So this is the framework that Mahavarti developed in his book, and this actually, these are the ideals, but the reality is something different. But despite that, Mahavarti continue to stress the ideals, continue to emphasize the ideals. This is very important. Yes, in the Mawardi's period, Sultan, he doesn't have any people's support on, but still Mawardi stressed that political obligation needs to be based on contract. So this is a very revolutionary step taken by Mawardi at the time. And now I am moving to the Al-Farabi. Al-Farabi's political ideals. Farabi is another important political philosopher in the Islamic history. And who is Al-Farabi? He born in 870 and died in 950. He is from Fayrab actually, which is a place located in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is now, though it's an independent country, but in the Islamic history, it is a part of larger Khorasan province. And Farabi is known as the founder of Islamic philosophy, and he actually brilliantly reconciled Islamic principles as he understood with the Aristotelian legacy. So actually, even after Aristotle, the Farabi is considered, even after Aristotle, he is the second most important figure to the history of philosophy. That's why so many scholars, even from the Western world, consider Farabi as the second master. The first master is Aristotle. The second master is Farabi. To that extent, actually, Farabi was excelled in reading and understanding and in writing commentaries to the early Greek literatures. And obviously, he was influenced by Plato and Aristotle. And interestingly, when it comes to the political philosophy, Farabi was more or less influenced by Plato rather than Aristotle. Some people argue why that happened. Actually, some people try to answer this question, why he actually, when it comes to the political philosophy, embraced Plato rather than Aristotle. The response is that some scholars highlight historically he might have not not received the Aristotle's brilliant work of politics, so he couldn't actually develop a more balanced political theory combining both Plato and Aristotle. But unfortunately, since he didn't get the Aristotle's work related to politics, he relied only on Plato. So anyhow, the Plato's influence is very much visible in Farabi's political theory. And so one of his major works is that I showed here the picture. This is one of the major works of Farabi, where he discusses elaboratively about politics on perfect state. And this is a translation, Mabadi'ul Ara'u Ahlil Madinatil Fadila. This is one of the greatest works ever written on political philosophy. And Farabi's political philosophy has different distinct features. So one is, according to Farabi, philosophy is the knowledge of the ultimate truth. So philosophy is the real knowledge. Real knowledge can be attained through philosophizing. And so rational, what is philosophy means then? It's a rational deliberation. So through rational deliberation only you can reach the ultimate truth. This is the Farabi's framework. And so how do in Farabi says that not everyone can actually achieve the status of a philosopher. It is a characteristics of a few. Actually, only few are blessed with such kind of mind, such kind of rational intellect. So philosophers and those who are close to philosophers only know the real truth, because they are the only people who actually have the access to those rational faculties and rational power. And so those who don't have such kind of rational power to deliberate and demonstrate the real truth, ultimate truth through reason, those who don't have such access are the popular mass. The 90% of the population doesn't have access to such kind of rational mind. Only philosophers have. So philosophers can achieve and realize or know the ultimate truth through reasoning capacity. For the general public, what do they do? According to the framework of Farabi, it's religion. Religion is a symbolic representation of philosophy. Philosophy is the real knowledge which is only appealing to the great minds, and most of the people who doesn't have such kind of mind, it's for them is the religion. So religion is a micro version of the philosophy according to Farabi. So philosophy is a universal, religion is applicable to one group of people, meaning to say it's for general public. Religion is for general public, philosophy and rational deliberation is for people with high minds or exceptional philosophical minds. And so here you see the Farabi actually subordinate the religion to the philosophy, ranking philosophy as the highest source of knowledge, and religion is just second to that. Though he said both did in his framework, philosophy and religion actually doesn't collude or doesn't contradict, but philosophy is the highest because it is a highest source because it actually captures the real essence of everything, true knowledge of everything, ethics and whatnot, you can name it. And the religion is mere a representation, mere a mirror image of philosophy. This is the Farabi's framework. And how Farabi develop this or apply this in politics or to develop the political philosophy? And he says happiness is the perfection of the soul. So when you, as opposed to modern rationalists, they actually refute the spirituality when they actually dichotomize spirituality and rationality. But according to Farabi, he just representing the Platonic tradition, says that when you go when you sharpen your rational capacity, actually it lead you to perfection of your soul. So to perfect your soul, you need to develop your rationality. So there is a connection between the perfection of the soul and rationality. This is a right opposite to modern construction of rationality. Modern construction of rationality generally refute spirituality. But here you see, following the Platonic tradition, Farabi says there is a link between soul and rationality. So when you actually perform your rationality to a maximum extent, that brings peace and perfection to your soul. Actually, when you feel that perfection, only you feel the happiness. So perfect soul, actually what does it mean? Perfect soul means that it will liberate yourself from the material demand and it will bring godly essence within you. So you see, the rational deliberation actually liberates yourself according to Farabi, following the Platonic tradition. Liberate yourself from materialistic inclinations of yourself and bring you to the closer to God. This is a different kind of rationality. You need to take this into account. And so how do you perfect yourself? And so perfect yourself by virtuous action. So once you deliberate deeply, once you develop your rational capacity, you will it will also help you to perform virtuous actions. So when you do virtuous actions, right actions, that will lead you to the perfect soul. So in order to a philosopher can self regulate himself, he can self regulate and self empower his soul, but the general public cannot. So for that purpose, there should be a political leader. The political leader will lead the city to perfect the souls of citizens, to develop the rational capacity of the citizens, so that they will also do the perfect virtuous acts. It will lead them to achieve perfection of the soul, of their soul. So political leaders' main task is obviously to lead the city towards the perfection of the souls of citizens. So virtuous city. So once the leader achieved that target of transforming the entire city into a citizens, into a perfect city, means in that city now everyone have the happy soul because of their virtuous action. So this is the perfect virtuous city, an ideal city, the city of true happiness to the for Farabi. So in order to do this task, Farabi says philosopher need to have two qualities. Either he should have a philosophical knowledge and religious knowledge, because philosophical knowledge can only help some people to believe in the philosopher's instructions. Most of them will not understand philosophy. So to convince the general public, the ruler must have religious knowledge. So combining both, the rulers can convince the citizens of the city to perform virtuous actions. So consequently, the city will transform into a virtuous city. So philosophy and religion are must. The knowledge over the philosophy and religion are two important knowledge sources that each and every ruler must possess. And so he brings Prophet Muhammad as a model. He says Prophet Muhammad is actually a philosopher prophet, because according to Farabi, he has the rational capacity and also he has an imaginative faculty, meaning say revelation. So actually in his understanding, Farabi's understanding, Prophet Muhammad brought revelation for the general public, and actually he also produced philosophical knowledge for the elite minded people. This is the understanding of Farabi. So this the Prophet Muhammad should be called as a philosopher prophet according to Al-Farabi. So this is the kind of a different layout or template of Islamic political philosophy, which actually rooted in rationalist tradition, which developed by Al-Farabi. And so I have 4 minutes. In conclusion, I tried to say 3 things. So 3 important aspects that you need to remember: revelation and reason in Islamic tradition. So reason and revelation played a key role in developing 2 different strands of political philosophy in the Islamic history. Revelation centered ethics, actually developed by Asharis, adopted Mawardi, and adopted by Mawardi, and he went in to develop a whole Islamic theory of caliphate based on that. So Islamic theory of caliphate is rooted in epistemological understanding of reason. And Farabi went into another direction. He actually prioritized reason, so he ended up developing a totally contrasting set of political principles. And but what is the similarity between both Farabi and Mawardi? Spiritual development and religion both played a vital role in shaping political imaginations of both classical thinkers. Yes, Farabi, though he actually gave a privileged position to reason, he did not reject religion. Rather, he revelation. Rather, he said revelation also must be part of the city perfect state, because revelation is for public. So there should be a strong presence of religion even within a Farabi's political thinking. This is the kind of a similarity we can say. What is the difference? Sunni political theory is a closer to democracy because Sunni political theory is based on revelation. So revelation is, revelation is for everyone. Meaning anyone can read the revelation and understand Islamic ethics so that anyone can come to rule a city. No problem at all. There is Sunni political theory doesn't say, or Islamic worldview doesn't say any particular class of people has the only have the right to interpret the text. No, anyone can read and interpret the text, understand the text, following particular methodologies. So this is very democratic understanding of revelation. So Islamic Sunni political theory is very much closer to Islamic, very much closer to democracy. But while Farabi's concept is very closer to epistocracy, meaning to say of Plato. Meaning, so in Farabi says a real knowledge can only be achieved, or real knowledge can only be acquired by only by few people, philosophers. So that privilege gives them to become the ruler. So automatically there will be a ruling class who is given priority or privilege to rule over the people other than the public mass. So Farabi's concept is sort of we say epistocracy, meaning a few knowledgeable people can only have the privilege to rule. But in Sunni political theory it's different, which is very much closer to democracy. With this note, I conclude my today's presentation. If you have any questions,